So today I thought I would do a story about myself. If you're listening to this on the podcast, you wouldn't really know my story because I started this off on YouTube. So there is some videos on YouTube, although they are separate parts and it's not really called my story. And also because I was just giving some information on different disorders as well. So it's not specifically my story. So I thought I'm helping these people share their stories, so why wouldn't I share mine? Because I do get questions being like, where's your story? Blah, blah, blah. And maybe listening to my story, you'll have a better idea of why I do this and why I like to bring awareness to mental health and why I'm a big believer that you're more than your mental health and you're going to be capable of doing so much in your life. And you could put, your disorders or whatever it would be behind you, and recovery is possible. So I thought I would do a video as well because people seem to really like the videos. Just me though, nothing interesting here. So you're gonna see me look to the right a lot. Well, this is my right a lot, because I kind of had to draw like a map of everything because I'm just gonna blank because my story is like within like several years. So I kind of had to make a list. So that's why I'm gonna be looking everywhere. I guess I could actually grab it here, but I'm still going to be looking. Okay, so where does my story start? So my story started in elementary school. And in elementary school, my parents told me that I came home every single day telling them I felt weird. They didn't know what that meant. I clearly didn't know what that meant because I was in elementary school and because kids say the weirdest things. So my parents kind of just like brushed it off and were like, okay, whatever. So that happened. No one really thought anything of it. And then a significant thing happened in grade 7. So when I was 13, my grandma died. And my grandma was like my bestest friend in the whole world. So that happened. I didn't really deal with it. I was like, I didn't even cry. I was just so like in shock and couldn't process that happened. So I guess like I didn't really deal with it, just because I kind of shut myself off. I feel like the shock kind of got to me with that. And then throughout school, this even lasted through high school, but like in middle school, which was around that time that my grandma died, I had issues socially in school. Like, I would have no problem making friends at like camp or like with people that went to different schools, but for some reason, I had a really tough time getting along with people that I went to school with. So I was bullied pretty badly when I was younger. And I guess, yeah, in high school as well, but I would say definitely a lot in middle school. And so I guess that was a factor in everything as well. And then in grade 9, so 2 years later, when I was 15, I went through my first ever breakup. And you know what happens, whatever. Feels like the end of the world at the time. And for me, what a lot of people didn't get, because I took that breakup really badly, but it wasn't the breakup that I took badly, but people thought it was the breakup, and people were like, oh, you're crazy, get over it, whatever, because I was like broken as a person after that. So people were like, oh my god, it's a breakup, like whatever. What people didn't understand is that breakup triggered all of my past hurt. It had nothing to do with the fact that it was a breakup. It's just that is what kind of set everything off. Like all the emotions I had hidden, everything that I basically buried deep inside me, like that somehow triggered it and it all came out at the same time, which is why I didn't handle things well and why I didn't act right in a sense. I was not acting like myself. I don't act like that. So all of that happened, and then I had a lot of issues for quite some time after that. Like, I would self-harm and not, like, no one really knew. I would say maybe, like, two of my friends knew, and, like, maybe, and like the person I dated in grade 10 knew, but like nobody knew. My sister didn't know, my parents didn't know, a lot of people didn't know because I hid it really well. But that went on for, oh boy, how long did that go on for? That probably went on for like a year and a half to 2 years that I did that, and nobody found out. I still don't know how nobody found out, but nobody did. And because I was just struggling, and at that point, during all that time, I didn't realize, like, I knew what I was doing was not right. Like, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't really think about it too much. And I guess I should have. But I was just like, brush it off. I was like, I'm just suffering. Whatever. That was how I looked at it. So then comes 2 years later, I'm 17, and I decided to tell my mom what was up, what I was feeling, and my mom's like, okay, yeah, something is really wrong, so we need to deal with it. So my parents got me into therapy, and then they got me on a wait list for Health Sciences Center for the outpatient program, and to get like an assessment and everything, because I was just like not doing well, and just therapy wasn't going to cut it. I needed to go through the assessment process and go through the whole diagnosis process and kind of all of that. So I went through all of that, and they came up with 4 different disorders. There's one that I don't really agree with, but I guess at the time it made sense. So I'll start with the ones that, like, to me are very like legitimate. So obviously major depressive disorder, and that was very evident because I was struggling so much. I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't have an appetite. I was self-harming. Like, so that one was a pretty big one then. I kind of expected that one. And then generalized anxiety disorder as well. I did have anxiety. Later on, I will talk about how I got a lot worse, but at that point, it wasn't that bad, but it was there. And I'm a very panicky human being, and I've always known that, and people point that out, so it wasn't surprising that they said I had panic disorder. I mean, I never really thought about it, but it made sense. As soon as they said it, I was like, oh, okay, like it just made total sense. So those are the 3 that I like agree with. And then, so the final one, I don't necessarily agree with. So they said social anxiety. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I mean, at the time when I was bullied and stuff like that, like, people terrified me. So, like, I wouldn't sit and eat in the cafeteria, and, like, all that sort of stuff scared me. So, because, based off of that, they thought, social anxiety, whatever. But I think it was more of a situational thing because I am very outgoing and I do like being around people. So I think it was more of a situational thing. I don't think that's really relevant anymore. And I guess, yeah, things can change and no diagnosis is perfect. So that's what happened there. And then I got better. I was on medication for probably a year. I went to therapy like every week. I was finally doing well, so they took me off the pills and still kept doing therapy, but I was off the pills. Obviously I struggled here and there for sure, but I was doing better than I used to anyway, and I stopped self-harming as well. So that was going really good. And then in grade 12, so I was, I think, 17 in grade 12, 17, eventually 18. I turned 18 during the school year, so 17, 18, however old I was cheated on by the guy I was dating, and that was my first experience with cheating, and that kind of set off a whole range of emotions for me. So when that happened, I kind of lost it a little bit, and I did what most 18-year-olds did, and I went out and I partied, except I partied more than I should have, and I recognized that. I went out all the time. It didn't matter. I went out all the time. I got super drunk. I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing. Literally all my behaviors were just like, I'm sorry, my dogs are barking. They never stop. So let's ignore that. So I was basically engaging in all these things, like behaviors I shouldn't have been involved in. So, stuff happened, whatever. It is what it is. I'm not gonna dwell on it too much. I do wish I would have handled it differently than I did. But I still wasn't self harming, none of that. So, I was struggling, though, for sure. I was struggling. And that went on from like 18 years old till I was about 20. So now I'm going to take you all the way to now 2017. So 2017, I was doing way better. I stopped partying as hard as I was. And I got into a relationship with somebody who struggled with anxiety really badly. And, I thought it'd be a good idea at first because I was like, you know what? I used to struggle with this stuff. Like maybe I could be help to him, right? So I thought about it in that way. How great would that be if I could help him? So I thought about that. Didn't really think about anything else. And then eventually, as time went on, his anxiety kind of rubbed off on me. And then I became so anxious to the point where I was like throwing up like 3 to 5 times a day. And honestly, there was nothing to it because like I wasn't eating because I had no appetite. I was so anxious. I literally couldn't eat. And regardless, I would be throwing up all the time. Like it was just like, it was horrible. I was not functioning at that point. I got so skinny. I think I was under 100 pounds. I looked sick. I looked tired. Everyone noticed it. It was very noticeable what that was doing to me. So once I got out of that relationship, I got put on anxiety meds because I wasn't functioning. So they put me on anxiety meds and that helped a lot. And I went back to therapy as well. So once I got that situation under control, I worked on myself. And the following year in 2018, I started going to the gym and I started weightlifting. And that is where the recovery really started. I would say, we're in 2020 now, I would say I have been doing fairly well since 2018. Obviously, some things happened along that hurt me, but I'm standing pretty strong all in all, and I've been able to get past whatever has hit me the last 2 years. It's still not easy, but I do it. I put all my energy into it, and that's basically my story, and I'm sure I'm probably forgetting some things. It's a lot of years to put together because this started when I was so young, so I've been dealing with this basically my whole life, and it's no surprise. Mental illness does run in my family, so genetics wise, it makes sense. As that's a reason there, and obviously my social life with the bullying and everything, and I'm sure the big move to Canada from Argentina with like new language, new everything. I'm sure that was a factor. My grandma's death. Like there was just so many things that contributed to it, I think. So it's definitely not just one thing. It's a few different factors that were involved in my story. But yeah, basically like the big takeaway from it that I would say is like, work hard, do what you need to do to get better. Like, do not just settle. Do not just sit there and be like, you know what, I'm just going to suffer forever. Do not do that to yourself at all. You deserve so much better. You need to just realize what these things are and take the steps, right? Like, take step one. Step one is acknowledging that there's something wrong. Step two is how you're going to go about it, right? Like, are you doing research on these issues? Are you going to therapy? Or, are they going to give you medication with therapy as well, or just therapy? Are you going to meditate, do yoga, engage in exercise? Like, you need to be doing things that will help. And actually, it's funny because I made a post, and this was this was a couple years ago, I think. And I actually made a post on Facebook at one point, and I was just like, I don't understand why people just like refuse to get better and use like, I can't go to therapy as an excuse to get like you can. And then this girl, I guess, took it the wrong way and commented, not everyone can afford therapy. And it's like, you don't even have to. If you do the research in your city, like I did research in my city, there are probably at least 4 different clinics that treat people regardless of their financial situation. You can go to a therapy session, you can get an hour of therapy for as little as $13. So there is really no excuse, right? Like there's not like $13. Like you probably would have spent that on a meal at McDonald's anyway, right? Or like on alcohol that you've been drinking for the weekend. Like you have that. Just use it for the right things. And same with like doing research as well. Like there's so many free resources on the internet nowadays. Like it's just like, do not give yourself excuses, because then you're never gonna get better. It's just like you gotta basically stop with the excuses and just decide, you know what, today I'm gonna change my life. Today I'm gonna start changing it and stick to that, because I promise it's going to get so much better. So much better. Okay, well, once again, thank you for listening. And yeah, if you want to be a guest, I'm scheduling several guests at the moment, so just message me. I would love to chat with you if you're comfortable sharing your story. I would love to have you on here. As always, my links are always in the descriptions for everything. Yeah, I will see you all soon.